Gentilossi. Then in 4th position is the number 65 car of Dick Danielson. And in 5th, the 77 car of Jerry Thompson. Scott Pruitt, pole sitter, has climbed out of his Mercure as work continues on that machine.
Scott Pruitt, who has won 4 times in 1987. His teammate Pete Halsmer has won twice, and the only other non-Mercure winner has been Elliott Forbes Robinson. He, too, has dropped out of the race. Back up front to Les Lindley. Not only has Les Lindley not won yet in 1987, his career best finish is a 2nd. So Les Lindley could be en route to his first ever career win.
Gary Lee is in the Scott Pruitt pit. Perhaps he can tell us more on what's wrong with that car.
Well, Pruitt just pulled the helmet off, and as you alluded to earlier, there was a problem with overheating early on with that additional pace lap. The car overheated. Jack Roush said, we feel like we blew a water hose someplace. We're checking for it right now. Obviously, the problem has been more serious than just overheating as Scott is out and the helmet is off. We'll have a word with Scott momentarily. Bob?
All right. In the meantime, he sees his teammate out on the race course still running in that 2nd spot, but certainly a big disappointment for Scott Pruitt. 4 times a winner this year in Trans Am.
You just saw Jerry Thompson go by, the man who has moved over from American Challenge Racing. He leads a group of about 3 or 4 drivers that have moved over from other types of racing. At 65 there, Dick Danielson is another one from American Challenge Racing. And, of course, Irv Hare was a man who was virtually unbeatable in that type of racing last year, and he's done quite well for himself this year. Gentilossi, by the way, perhaps has made his most significant mark. He's in that, remember, that white Tornado right there leading that pack. He's made his most significant mark in IMSA GTO racing.
Some pretty good competition here for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and even 7th position. There are the front 2. And a little while ago, the 3rd place runner, Paul Gentilossi, got the car a little bit sideways. He didn't lose any position, but now he may lose the spot.
Danielson.
Indeed, Dick Danielson in car number 65.
Oh, he took it in there pretty high. He loses some ground. Gentilossi has got the line. He's got the momentum, but number 65, Danielson, moves down and takes it away from him.
Just great racing here among 5 cars as they are really going at it. Gentilossi has lost a spot now to Dick Danielson, but it's 3 abreast racing.
That was Irv Hare, Bob, making move that time. He goes to the inside of another competitor, picks up a position. Hare looked like he had enough room. There goes Durhag. Durhag moves through, and Jim Durhag, they're the 4th car in line, and they're to the inside.
Oh. Nice pass again by Gentilossi in corner number 5. So he takes 3rd position back from Dick Danielson, who, by the way, is the hometown favorite. His hometown is Heartland, Wisconsin. So he has a lot of fans rooting for him here this afternoon. Elliott Forbes Robinson is getting back into his Porsche 944, and he's many laps down, but will go back out there. And Gary Lee is with Scott Pruitt.
Well, Scott, despite the fact you're well up in points in the Trans Am Championship, it really doesn't make you feel any better after today's start. What was the overheating problem? What precipitated that?
It looks like one of the fittings broke. One of the fittings that came out of the side of the block looks like it had a crack in it or broke or something, and that put us out of the race.
Is there any chance now you might go into one of the team cars, or are you a spectator for the rest of the race?
I'm afraid I'm a spectator for the rest of the race.
So the helmet is off, and he is finished for the afternoon.
Scott Pruitt, leader in Trans Am points with 127. As a matter of fact, he has a commanding lead in the points. Tied for 2nd in the point standings, only 62 for both Lindley and Jim Durhag. But Scott Pruitt with a very comfortable lead in the point standings. Les Lindley continues to lead this race, and as we told you, he has never won a Trans Am race. A little earlier, we had a chance to talk to him about winning.
The top teams seem to be winning with regularity, and you're right there knocking at the door. Is that frustrating?
Yes, it is. We've had a long discussion with SCCA over the turbos, which we feel they have a decisive advantage over us. And we're trying as hard as we can. And we've gone as far as we can as far as speed and everything else. We have gone faster in the car than they did last year. We qualified it faster, but yet we still can't win.
Well, Les Lindley is doing a little bit more than knocking on the door, at least in the first 8 laps of this race here this afternoon at Road America. He has broken it down and is continuing to hold the advantage over Pete Halsmer in the Mercure.
Well, Bob, the V6s, which is what Les has, they're at 275 cubic inches. They're rated about 500 horsepower. The turbos that he was talking about, they're just at 150 cubic inches, but the horsepower, well, it's anybody's guess. It's well up into the 600. perhaps above 650. Now, the Mercurs have had some weight added onto them this year in an effort to strive even closer toward that word we used at the top of the show, parity. And at least today here at Elkhart Lake, it looks like Les's Camaro really has a slight edge.
Again, we're following the battle for third position. At the moment, Dick Danielson holds it. Paul Gentilozzi is in fourth. They move to the high side of the racetrack and pass one of the back markers, one of the slower cars in competition. But there are 6 cars here racing for position, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, while the first 2, Halsmer and Lindley, have pulled away.
It's a great battle, and that is Deborah Gregg, who's at the tail of that group of 6 cars. Bob mentioned there's a lap car in there, but there are 6 that are right in there, almost representative of that race for second in points. We have 4 cars in this year's Trans Am Series that are within 2 points. Yes, 4 cars within 2 points for second place in the season-long standings. Les Lindley, Jim Durhog, Pete Halsmer, and Deborah Gregg. It doesn't really make any difference which one's got the 2-point advantage. They're that close.
Now Danielson puts a little bit of racetrack between himself and Paul Gentilozzi. And there you can continue to see that damage at the front end of the Irv Hare car as he is right now running in 5th.
Gentilozzi's car is also turbo-powered. It is a V8, an Oldsmobile Toronado. This is the closest to the front we have seen that car run in Trans Am competition. He's relatively new to this type of racing. Obviously, the car, you can see that Irv Hare is right now putting him through his paces and testing right now Gentilozzi uphill down the front stretch.
And Deborah Gregg looks like she's in a position to move up another spot. Indeed, she does, passing the 77 car of Jerry Thompson. So that puts her in 7th.
Deborah Gregg, whose best finish was at Lime Rock, the last race on the Trans Am Trail when she finished 4th. But she has put together 2 5ths this year and 3 other top 10 races. Deborah Gregg has not been an experiment. She is a solid racer. She's been given excellent equipment, but when the green flag drops, she is very strong.
Deborah Gregg, one of the best female competitors in the United States. We ask her about women in racing.
You're making a dent. You're making it very obvious that a woman certainly can handle herself in the professional level of racing.
Well, you know, I hope so. I mean, I don't think any of us are doing it to prove anything in the world today because, you know, women in business are there more often. And I think because of that, it's helped us a lot. And the ground had been broken earlier. And so it's not such a microscopic thing that we're in. Like, we are a little honed in on because we are unique. I mean, if you reckon how many men are here this weekend that are driving race cars and how many women are here driving race cars. Robin doesn't have a race this weekend. Patty Moise is in Grand National. She's not racing here this weekend. Lynn St. James races in IMSA. I'm sure she's here, but they're not racing, so you're sort of like, well, you're the only girl walking around in this funny-looking 3-layer driving suit. The IndyCar guys are kind of giving you the strange eye, like, you know, what is this broad coming from? But it's a lot nicer nowadays. I think the men are a lot more open-minded, and it's a lot of fun.
That's Deborah Gregg, who is in 7th position in the Roush-prepared car number 4, the Mercury Capri. So we continue to have Les Lindley in the lead with Pete Halsmer in 2nd position and the number 65 car of Dick Danielson in 3rd. Then this group of 5 cars battling for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Paul Gentilozzi getting a challenge from Irv Hare as Hare has positioned himself right on the back bumper of that number 81 car of Gentilozzi. They come down the straightaway. Hare has already put some damage to the front end of that car when he had an encounter with Bruce Jenner. And now look at Deborah Gregg, who is to the inside going into turn number 1, and she passes 1, 2. She almost had the 3rd car picked off.
What an outstanding front stretch run for Deborah Gregg as she not only out-horsepowered them down the front stretch, so to speak, but outbraked at least 2 competitors, and as Bob mentioned, almost got the 3rd. I was about to mention that Hare has a Toronado also. This is a Buick V6, but watch for Deborah Gregg now on the left-hand side of your screen. There's yellow trim on her Lincoln Mercury.